DonInLondon, hello. My video for April 21st, all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol. My behaviour could be equally addictive around people, places and things. So, confirmed. Yes, over 35 years I drank alcohol. It's served me well, I thought, for many a year, making it possible to take the edge off, to enjoy life, to relax, and often to find oblivion from those things I didn't like about my life and what was going on in it. And the reason why I didn't like what was going on in my life or how it was going was often because I didn't exercise my freedom of choice. Freedom of choice to say yes to the right things and no to the wrong things. But of course we don't know in the moment often whether it's right or wrong, because we just get on with it. And when somebody asks us, can you do something? Some of us feel obliged to say yes, never realising it's equally okay to say no, I don't want to do that. So these days, just learning one day at a time what to say yes to, what I can do, and what I need to say no to, what I cannot do, and then learning what the difference is in between. So it's not easy to be in recovery, but it's been going on for me for several years, and I'm very pleased about that. Although along the way there have been very difficult times and very traumatic experiences, which I never thought I would ever feel or be party to. So life goes on. So what's helped me get into sober living? Well, family, friends, community, medical people kept me alive long enough, even though it was very frustrating for them, for me to realise I could not keep sober on my own. So every element that I had in my life played a part in keeping me alive. Elements of family, friends, community, professionals. And then when I got to the jumping off point, as it's always often called, or a moment of clarity, which I thought it couldn't get any worse, and not without being dead. And I had a choice, which was ask for help or die. And it was that simple, a simple choice. If I carry on drinking, I will die. I'm poisoning myself every single day, 24/7, or I need to get some help. And that moment of clarity was, I suppose, a realisation. Simply, I needed help beyond my willpower, my ability to stand on my own 2 feet and put a brave face on. And I suppose when I got to hell, I needed to keep walking to get out of it. So what helped me most? A fellowship in recovery. Alcoholics Anonymous. Never speak for AA. It's full of unique, authentic people who speak where they will about their experience, strength and hope of recovery. So it's a personal choice. And the good news about AA, there are no rules or laws to obey. It's simply there for one purpose, for people with a desire to stop drinking to stop and stay stopped and work out how to do that. Here I share about the AA preamble, Alcoholics Anonymous preamble, which is shared at every meeting I go to, followed by 1 or 2 readings and some of my reflections on how sobriety is working for me today. So April 21, yes, and it's been glorious, and it looks like it's going to be glorious for the next few days in terms of weather. And it's Easter weekend coming up, and also a royal wedding the following weekend. So there we go. I can be aware and alert to these things. I'm not with the windows shut tight, the curtains drawn, the door locked, the telephone off. No longer isolated, now back in the world, trying to be included in any way I can, which I can say yes to and which I can say no to. So the AA preamble goes like this. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And that's how it is. Desire to stop drinking, share a message of experience, strength and hope. And in this book, which I share most often, daily reflections, is a reflection each day on one of the steps, 12-step program. 12 steps, 12 months. It covers one step a month and one tradition a month. So the steps are for open and honest and willing living, to keep on learning life. In other words, to keep on having humility to learn, and it's okay to say I don't know the answers. So I'm only working out the answers for me as I go along, and then I share about it. And the same is true of anybody else who is in fellowship. We are learning life as we go along, and then we share about it in meetings. And the most important thing about meetings is what you see is what you get. So it's attraction rather than promotion. And what's the difference between attraction and promotion for me? Well, simply, attraction is what you see is what you get. It doesn't always mean it's going to be good news, because often we share our bad news and what we did about it. But promotion suggests that AA can cure you, or can get you into recovery and keep you stopped. Well, the answer is there is no fix. There is no fix in AA. There is simply working at life on life's terms. And that's the attraction for me, to get back on track, not have to drink anymore, and enjoy the life I can, and also be aware when it gets hard and tough and horrible, because it often does. That's just life. That I can deal with that too. So I can deal with the good times and the bad times. What I try to deal with also is extremes. Extremes of feeling around joy, which have no foundation, and extremes of sadness, when there is sadness, or it has no foundation either. I could just be depressed about life not being as good as it maybe ought to be, which means my expectations of life have become too much. So, 12-step program, open, honest and willing to keep on learning. Step 1, which I covered in January, all about what it's like to be powerless over alcohol, and if I were to drink again, life would be unmanageable. It's learning to admit being an alcoholic and then accept it on a daily basis. And that's the key. We're in a 24-hour program, one-day program. On any given day, I can accept I'm an alcoholic, but if I let go the acceptance and start to get into denial or anger and frustration about life, I can get very upset and start resenting. And as soon as I start resenting, then life does get unmanageable again as well. And then step 2 in February, all about came to believe a power greater than me could restore me to sanity. And the higher power, or a power greater than me, well, it can be a person on a bus who just says something which means something to me, which will get me out of a pickle. So the more I share openly, the more the higher power works for me, which is every bit of wisdom around me, which I don't know yet. And I call that truth, finding the truth of now. Love is important. It's the most important emotion we have, from which all the other ones fall out. So how to love people, how to be loved back without conditions, and then keep on learning the wisdom on a daily basis. And then step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. And I had a lot of trouble with God in my early years of living, because my father was an atheist, an agnostic and a believer, depending on his life situation. And that's a bit like everything in life. Will God work in all aspects of living? And the simple answer is, depends what your understanding of God is. So if you have an understanding of God, that's great. And does God work in every situation? The answer is yes, for me, because I understand that God is truth, love and wisdom. So whatever we come to believe for ourselves, and it must be a unique and authentic understanding of a higher power, that we can let go and let God, let go and let good things happen, let go and let the good of information come to us, the truth, let go and let love come back to us, so without condition, loving people and they love us back, and let go and let wisdom happen. So we don't have to know anything. The best thing we can say often is, I don't know, but I can find out. And there's no harm in that. But if somebody tries to shame you for it, that's their shame and not your shame. So we need not be guilty about not knowing, because life is about learning with humility, which means we can laugh at ourselves and our mistakes and don't feel put off if we don't know how to do something. And then for April, step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And a fearless moral inventory means that once we've done the inventory of our good points and bad points, or our good traits and our bad traits, then we can work out how we're going to deal with them, how we're going to develop our good traits, which is for me forever learning from my mistakes, and deal with the bad traits, which is not being able to listen, not looking for the truth, being stuck in my own opinion, and not seeking other people's wisdom. And it's also about, our moral character in many ways. So in this book, 12 and 12, which I often refer to, even if it's only for the first page of step 4, it's not to put you off doing a fearless moral inventory. It's to encourage that the fearless moral inventory is actually going to free us up, so we've got more room in our heads for new stuff. Because if we're continually stuck in our old ways of looking at the world as if it were an enemy and we're in battle, then it will always be the enemy and a battle. But if we look at the world as it's there, we're part of it, and what can I do with what I have, and what can I learn today, then life takes on a new meaning. So, in the book, step 4, the first page of step 4, it says this: creation gave us instincts for a purpose. Without them we wouldn't be complete human beings. If men and women didn't exert themselves to be secure in their persons, made no effort to harvest food, or construct shelter, there would be no survival. If they didn't reproduce, the earth wouldn't be populated. If there were no social instinct, if men cared nothing for society or society of one another, there would be no society. So these desires for sex relations, for material and emotional security, and for companionship are perfectly necessary and right, and surely God-given, as nature intended. Yet these instincts, so necessary for our existence, often far exceed their proper functions. Powerfully, blindly, many times subtly, they drive us, dominate us, and insist upon ruling our lives. Our desires for sex, material and emotional security, and for an important place in society, often tyrannize us. When thus out of joint, man's natural desires cause him great trouble, practically all the trouble there is. No human being, however good, is exempt from these troubles. Nearly every serious emotional problem can be seen as a case of misdirected instinct. When that happens, our great natural assets, the instincts, have turned into physical and mental liabilities. So, all of us can develop physical, mental, emotional liabilities. And the good news is that we can straighten them out if we know how, and if we know what they are, what has put us out of joint in our lives. And step 4 is really a reckoning, just simply to deal with the past and what happened. And then step 4 we share with another human being of our choosing, not necessarily somebody in the fellowship. It can be a priest, a person that is trusted, medical person, psychologist, psychiatrist, you name it, or a stranger can sometimes be the perfect person to share with, somebody we don't know in our normal group of people, until we get comfortable with who we are and why we are the way we are. We don't have to share every dirty little secret, or even secrets. In fact, they're not dirty. They only remain so if they're left with dust gathering. So once they're out of the way, that is, we understand why we got to where we are through doing this inventory of ourselves, then we can start to deal with life today, so that our feelings fit our situation, and our feelings are never about covering up old crimes or perceived wrongs that we've done, or perceived wrongs that have been done to us. So in this book, Daily Reflections for today, 21st of April, Cultivating Faith. And faith comes in many ways. Anyway, this is Dr. Bob, one of the co-founders. I don't think we can do anything very well in this world unless we practice it, and I don't believe we do AA too well unless we practice it. We should practice acquiring the spirit of service, and in this he's talking about unity, service and recovery, mainly in relation to the fellowship. We all play our part. Even if it's just turning up to a meeting, we play our part. We should attempt to acquire some faith, which isn't easily done, especially for the person who has always been very materialistic, following the standards of society today. But I think faith can be acquired. It can be acquired slowly. It has to be cultivated. That was not easy for me, and I assume that it is difficult for everyone else. And that comes from the book Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers. And this thing of, but I think faith can be acquired. And, you know, it's faith in maybe doing the right thing, faith that life can work if I am open to it. Faith can be built if I let go all the old stuff around romance and finance and thinking that I ought to be doing this because that's what my peers are doing, the people I know best, or people I've come to meet within work or within community. Position and status really don't help with faith. Faith comes from a practical understanding of our needs being met and our wants being forgotten and relating to people well. Fear is often the force that prevents me from acquiring and cultivating the power of faith. Fear blocks my appreciation of beauty, tolerance, forgiveness, service and serenity. And when I think about fear blocks my appreciation of beauty, tolerance, forgiveness, service and serenity, I had a very strange situation a couple of years into recovery where I felt very unwell, and my immediate medical support said, it's all in your head because this is the sort of thing you should expect when you're in recovery and sobering up. I said, yes, but it's been a couple of years and I feel dreadful. And inside me there was a feeling that I didn't have anything to fear for some reason, although I didn't feel well. And it's very strange. I think there's something in nature which says if your system is packing up for whatever reason, once you get past this, you know, fear is a weird thing for me. What was happening was I was suffering from malnutrition, and I didn't realise I was suffering from malnutrition because I didn't know I had type 1 diabetes. So although I was thirsty and losing weight, nobody really made the connection until I said, you know, this is the third or fourth time I've come to see you, and I'm really thirsty, and I'm getting very thin, and I think I'm on my way out. Anyway, something clicked, and you know, ignorance is not bliss, but the thing was, I'd lost fear, and it was springtime a few years back, and I thought this is the last time I'm going to see it. But I didn't fear it for some reason. I just thought, you know, it looks quite good actually this springtime. So I don't know what goes on in our, you know, with nature and our physical decline. Anyway, the good news was I got diagnosed, and then I had to learn how to inject insulin, learn how to develop a diabetic regime for type 1. And I'm still alive several years later, much to my surprise, because I'm not the best student even when it comes to doing that sort of thing. And along the way of all of this, it was understood my endocrine system hadn't been quite right for quite a while. That is the thing that gives all the right chemicals in the head so the head works properly. And I had clinical depression too. But it's weird because depression doesn't stay down all the time. It sort of gets back to a level playing field where most people are. But sometimes medically I needed some help. So I got medical help to deal with clinical depression. So a couple of physical things, type 1 diabetes, clinical depression, I suppose, and also an emotional condition, depression. But it is based on physicality and chemistry, actually. Apart from mood, our feelings. All these things have occurred, yet fear has not been the issue. Sometimes anxiety and great big dollops, yes, when things go wrong with the diabetic regime, or things just go wrong and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm just human like that. But there is a difference with faith. Faith in doing the next right thing, regardless of whether you're going to live or die, is the right thing to do. You work out what you can do and what you can't do, and wisdom to know the difference. It's a peculiar thing. So we don't have to fear life anymore. The greatest fear, I suppose, is not engaging in life, getting depressed, isolated and back in a corner, where we get angry, frustrated, and the whole old regime comes back to us. And the two key things which can do that are romance and finance. The bugbear of modern society. We all like a bit of romance. I haven't got any at the moment, but that doesn't mean I'm sad. I'm just laughing because it's just the way it is. And financially, I'm just covering my needs. No great shakes. And that's alright too, because faith means that I can enjoy what I've got. Needs met to a very limited, I suppose, what I used to have and where I am now. There is no comparison, except one thing. I'm happy today. Now, isn't that a difference? Anyway, as Bill sees it, I'm going on a bit today. Page 258, all about the inventorying process again. And really all we're doing with the inventory is working out why we were angry and resentful, what was our part in it, and why did we blame the world for it? Because we felt like it, and it didn't seem fair. I didn't deserve it is something that is often said. And the answer is, nobody deserves anything. So if I set my expectations to 0 each morning, I've got less chance of finding a resentment. Anyway, 258 in As Bill Sees It, beneath the surface. Some will object to many of the questions that should be answered in the moral inventory, because they think their own character defects have not been so glaring. To these, it can be suggested that a conscientious examination is likely to reveal the very defects the objectionable questions are concerned with. Because our surface record hasn't looked too bad, we have frequently been abashed to find that this is so simply because we have buried these self-same defects deep down in us under thick layers of self-justification. Those were the defects that finally ambushed us into alcoholism and misery. And yeah, I did. I had wanting the right romance, wanting the right finance, saying yes to the wrong jobs and saying yes to the wrong relationships, but still desiring those relationships because they made me feel good in a superficial way. And I guess one of the things that my dad taught me on his deathbed, which is some 20 years ago, gracious me, long time, he was very upset that he hadn't looked after my mum the way he wished he had. And he said to me, you know, whatever the relationship romantically, are you able to cherish the girl, and is she able to cherish you? Or are you treating each other with superficiality and indifference, and that is shallowly? And of course we can create a great time for short periods superficially, or we can create chaos as well for short periods of time with different people until they get tired of it, or we get tired of them because we just didn't know how to love and be loved back. So cherishing is something I'm learning every single day in recovery, and I guess I've been trying to learn it all my life, but I didn't understand the language of feelings and love. So whatever time of life we get to these things, if we even get a snatch at it, just a little snippet, which then leads us into a deeper awareness of our environment, nature, our natural instincts in natural amounts, given our life situation, then life seems to be okay. Okay today. At the end of these videos I will share the Serenity Prayer to God or good conscience, or the power that you choose works for you. So as I said, the great higher powers are all around me. I'm in learning mode always, and if there is wisdom out there, if there's a way to learn more about love, if there's a way to learn more about truth, the power is all around us. It's only us who shut our eyes to it. So to God or good conscience, the Serenity Prayer, can do, can't do, wisdom to know the difference, is this. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. For me, always, in the moment, and just for today. From addiction to substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, so a recovering alcoholic, one day at a time. My behaviour, equally cross-addicted, as some people say. into people, places and things, which manifested as addicted to work, relationships, collecting, materialism, and probably addicted to another thing too, which underlies everything to do with my ability to recover or not recover, or stay in recovery or not stay in recovery, and that's fear. So fear was underneath most of what went on around my behaviour towards work, relationships and materialism, people, places and things. So why did I drink? Well, it took the edge off. It took the edge off how I felt, fear. So as fear diminished, so I was able to take account of other feelings that had been pushed down inside me. And these feelings were the normal ones that people learn about as they're growing up and developing as life goes along. So for me, overly reliant on fear, putting on a brave face, and ego covering up the gap inside, the emptiness. So all that going on, what did I do? I drank for 35 years. And where did I cross the line into addiction? Well, does it matter? I don't know. Sometime in 2002, I think, I went to incomprehensible amounts of drinking. But along the way, I kept company with people who drank a lot and enjoyed life to the full. So, mad at work, mad in relationships, mad about collecting. Insanity of doing the same thing over and over again and wondering why I didn't feel right about life. So these days, I'm very lucky. I just keep sober one day at a time and experience feelings as they are. So one of the things I do every morning is say to myself, how am I feeling, why, what can I do? And where did I learn all this? Well, I learned a lot along the way in living, and then I've been able to apply that a lot with the help of people who know about recovery, who know how to stay sober one day at a time. And the greatest body of people I know who can do that exist in fellowships, anonymous fellowships, like Alcoholics Anonymous. And I go to Alcoholics Anonymous to find out, experience, strength and hope of being sober from people who know. So the gift is, in anonymity, in the rooms of AA, I find the truth of how to be sober. I find the truth of how to be me and experience life as it is today. Simple as that. So I share a lot about AA. I don't speak for it, never can, never will, never want to. Full of unique, authentic people with one similarity, and that's sobriety. But when we go to meetings, we leave our politics and religion at the door, most of the time, although sometimes we do share about our politics and our religion. But it's not to make you part of another person's idea, it's just so you know what helped them. So whatever helps, why not use it to help ourselves be in recovery? And that is what the fellowship is all about. So I share about it. It's anonymous, but for me, I was never anonymous in my drinking days, and since then, wherever I've gone, where I live, people know me as a recovering alcoholic, and that's my truth, just for me. And each person makes up their own mind about how that works for them. So what about AA? I share the statement of intent, or AA preamble here, and then I share a bit of the readings relating to the 12 steps of the AA program, which helps me keep my attitude and behaviour towards good, sober living, which can be happy or sad as life is. So here is the statement of intent, or AA preamble, which is shared at every meeting. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And it's as simple as that, really. Desire not to drink is the inclusion part, and then sharing experience, strength and hope, whether we're a newcomer, one day sober, or an old timer with decades sober. Simple as that. We all have wisdom to share, and we need to share it so we know what it's like to keep on drinking and what it's like not to drink one day at a time. AA saved my life, and all the people in AA, unique authentic people who choose how to live their recovery their own personal unique authentic way, have given me wisdom which I can utilise to keep sober. And when I can't get to meetings, I turn to the literature, or for guidance as well. This book, one of them, Daily Reflections, shares about each of the 12 steps, one a month. So we're in April, which is step 4. So January was about what is it to be powerless over alcohol. February was about the insanity of drinking and doing the same thing over and over again. March was about letting go old behaviour and developing new attitudes and behaviour soberly, how to live life, letting go old and bringing in the new. And April, step 4, is all about the personal fearless moral inventory, so we fear less as we go into our future and keep our feet firmly planted in the moment of now, today. And one of the things that we learn as we go along is that we did have a lot of fear, we did put on a brave face, and we did have quite a lot of ego protecting us, as we didn't know how to utilise courage, faith, and our confidence, our esteem. So these days I try to work to courage, faith and confidence, and one of the things it talks about for April 21st in this book, Daily Reflections, is cultivating faith. And it says here, I don't think we can do anything very well in this world unless we practice it, and I don't believe we do AA too well unless we practice it. We should practice acquiring the spirit of service, that's helping each other. We should attempt to acquire some faith, that's faith in living for me, and faith in the truth, which isn't easily done, especially for the person who has always been very materialistic, following the standards of society today. So in other words, there's an awful lot of bullshit, sorry about that, but there is a lot of bullshit around materialism, what we should want in life rather than what we actually need, following the standards of society today. But I think faith can be acquired. It can be acquired slowly. It has to be cultivated. That was not easy for me, and I assume that it is difficult for everyone else. That comes from Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers, another book. It goes on to say, fear is often the force that prevents me from acquiring and cultivating the power of faith. Fear blocks my appreciation of beauty, tolerance, forgiveness, service and serenity. And those words are, when you think about them, appreciation of beauty, the way the world is, as it is today. Tolerance, that is, we're part of life and we're not in charge. We can make choices and we know people can upset us. Forgiveness for those who do, and also forgiveness for ourselves, because if we cannot forgive ourselves for our old behaviour, how can we start our new behaviour, living soberly with new attitudes? Service and serenity, well, helping others, and serenity comes as life offers. It's not guaranteed, especially if you have a volcano going off, although we can now fly again from the UK. We have no power over it. So serenity is acceptance of what is possible and not the impossible for me. So when I share the serenity prayer to God or good conscience, as you choose, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference is simply for today.
Don in London, hello. April 21st, 2009. It's coming up to 8:02 and there's noises off outside. There's lots of banging and clattering as the wine bottles from across the road at the by Bendham restaurant are taken away. And this is a ritual which happens normally about 6 o'clock in the morning, but it seems like it's going on a bit later. So why is that making me smile? Well, because I don't drink a day at a time anymore. I'm in recovery, and recovered one day at a time. Some fine distinctions were shared last night in a meeting of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, the fellowship which helped me find my path back to who I am and what I may do on a daily basis. So I have a lot of gratitude this morning. That is, my cold has abated. I got to see a good friend yesterday who took my last annual chip, one of these chips that we have every year, and it's like pass it on. And the gift in passing it on means I don't have a great collection of medals in a drawer somewhere. I only have one current chip. I have a one-day chip and the current chip, so I've given up my last one. It's gone to a good home, and no doubt it will be passed on to somebody else as well. So it's just a little ritual that a couple of us came up with just to help us. And it means a lot, because we carry that chip with us for a whole year of sobriety, and you know, it's a celebration. So what's good about my life? Well, I've got fellowship, family, community, society. All these aspects of my life I can be a part of, rather than isolated and excluded. And the fellowship of AA is integral, and sober living is the foundation of everything I do these days, because without sober I become an addict again to either substance and behaviour. And you know, I don't really feel right about going backwards. I'd rather stay level on where I am and just experience ordinary living, which is extraordinary because I see it as it is, reality as it is, the best I can see it. And I do know there will still be denials in me, the I can't believe these moments, and the frustration, anger and depression which is associated with life as it goes on. And you know, with two other major conditions, type 1 diabetes and clinical depression, life is quite difficult, but it's okay, because I can smile when there's something to smile about. I can be sad when there's something to be sad about. So it's almost like I've got my feelings back. Or I'm experiencing my feelings as they may be in reality for the first time in over 50 years. Oh, that sounds a bit daunting. It is actually. Anyway, the fellowship of AA is integral, and there is a preamble shared at every meeting which I share here. I don't speak for AA, I speak about my experience, strength and hope gained from the literature and attending meetings. And as somebody said yesterday, there is no substitute for meetings, and I wholeheartedly agree, and I'm glad they pointed that out. It's absolutely essential to have face-to-face contact with people in recovery so that we can face the rest of the world as well. That's what I've learned. And it's not, I'm not trying to, there's a word called proselytise, which is me imposing my opinion on you. I don't want to do that. But anyway, here's the preamble of AA, which settles me down into the moment of now. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And that's it in a nutshell, is that primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety, which is why I do these videos. But nobody speaks for AA. It's got trusted servants. It doesn't have leaders who shout it from the rooftops. But so mine's a very low-level exercise of just sharing my experience, strength and hope a day at a time, and utilising the tools of the program. So it's a 12-step action program for individuals, and 12 traditions hold the fellowship together. And it's ordinary people staying in recovery one day at a time. So if you're looking for a fix or a way out which would be quick, all I've learned in the last few years is there is no quick fix, but there is a gentle progress made, and it improves our ability to see reality. And as reality is the true connection to spiritual experience, that is, living in the moment of now, mind, body and breath, experiencing life as it may be, and being able to absorb exactly what is going on. Not always perfect by any means, it's just progress, not perfection. We get a little bit further each day. So April is all about step 4, the fearless moral inventory, and it's often seen as the bogey step, if you like, the one which we don't really like doing, because we have to look at our resentments and defects. What made us resentful, what made us fear life, what made us put on a brave face and stop using our courage, faith and confidence, or just understanding it's okay to be human and make mistakes and learn from them. Why did we go into hiding? And the answer is that's what addiction did. And one of the readings which I want to share is in As Bill Sees It, which I think is really important, and also daily reflections today. Yeah, I'll do the daily reflections first because it's about the individual. And for April 21st it says, cultivating faith. I don't think we can do anything very well in this world unless we practice it. And I don't believe we do AA too well unless we practice it. We should practice acquiring the spirit of service. We should attempt to acquire some faith, which isn't easily done, especially for the person who has always been very materialistic, following the standards of society today. But I think faith can be acquired. It can be acquired slowly. It has to be cultivated. That was not easy for me, and I assume that it is difficult for everyone else. And that comes from Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers book. Fear is often the force that prevents me from acquiring and cultivating the power of faith. Fear blocks my appreciation of beauty, tolerance, forgiveness, service and serenity. Those words, an appreciation of beauty, becoming tolerant, forgiving, service and serenity. And those words weren't in my vocabulary when I was in my last throes of drinking. I was just so shut down and frightened by life. I couldn't open the front door, I couldn't answer a telephone, I couldn't open a letter. I could hardly stagger one way or another, it was just so bad. Fear was crippling me. And that's only a few years ago. So, the turnaround and this very, very slow progress, how else could it be? I mean, the world is big, beyond our imagination and comprehension. So if I get a little bit of guidance and I actually learn something every day, it's going to be good because it's new. And the whole program is based on changing attitude, behaviour and new experiences of living sober. And that is really scary in the early days. And there were newcomers last night, and my heart goes out to them because the awfulness of doing the first 90 days yet again and getting over that craving to drink, and why did I do that, and the beating up we do of ourselves. No one knows just how badly an alcoholic beats themselves up, to the point where they just don't want to be alive anymore. And going back for a relapse and a slip, it's awful, and I'm glad I haven't done it recently, so I'm lucky. But as Bill Sees It, I'm running out of time if I'm not careful, this one. Trouble becomes an asset, and this is on page 82, and this is really important for me. I think that this particular General Service Conference holds promise and has been filled with progress because it had trouble. And it has converted that trouble into an asset, into some growth and into a great promise. AA was born out of trouble, one of the most serious kinds of trouble that can befall an individual, the trouble attendant upon this dark and fatal malady of alcoholism. Every single one of us appreciated AA in trouble, in impossible trouble, in hopeless trouble, and that is why we came. If this conference was ruffled, if individuals were deeply disturbed, I say that is fine. What parliament, what republic, what democracy has not been disturbed? Friction of opposing viewpoints is the very modus operandi on which they proceed. Then what should we be afraid of? And that is absolutely true for me. The key in AA is that as we individuals are learning on a daily basis and improving our conscious contact with reality, the actual spiritual nature of this program, reality, we are going to get viewpoints which are different, because we're all different. We're unique, authentic people learning a day at a time. So nobody's on the same place on the same page for very long, which is why we always come back to experience, strength and hope. Lean on fellowship, gain the wisdom which is there from different people, make it work in your life and my life, or however we can. But we don't need to shut anybody up or tell anybody what to do. And trouble is good news, because friction means we are open to change. So there we are, more later.
Good morning, Don in London, and it's April the 21st, and the time is 8:15 in the morning, and this is all about AA. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And Monday morning, nice and cloudy here in London, UK. And I'm trying to wake up. Yesterday was very busy. I went out for lunch, or down for lunch, to see my sister and mother, and we had a great lunch and lots of conversation. And we're finding more out about where my father's roots were. My father never knew his mother or his father, and he was looked after by the Waif and Strays Society back in the 1920s when he was first alive, and he didn't have a very good start. And we're starting to put the pieces together of our family tree. So we get to know and understand new relations that we have, and they've only just found and discovered that we exist too, because nobody knew about my father's birth from my grandmother, or my father's mother, because it was just inappropriate at the time. And there's no blame in our family. It's just how society was. But it does explain a lot about how my dad was, and his fears of life and being found out. And, you know, for somebody who's in recovery himself, that's me, being found out to be inadequate was probably one of the greatest fears I had, that I wouldn't measure up to whatever it was that people wanted from me, or expected, or worse, what I thought they wanted. So fear about future, I guess, fear about future encounters where I might be undone was part of my life. And I didn't cope very well with it. I don't think anybody does. If you're trying to manage the future, you're in trouble. And as you know, I've been looking at this book, The Practice of the Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and I don't get very far before I find another gem which is appropriate to recovery. And it comes in the second chapter called The Origin of Fear. And this is just the first paragraph, not a long piece. The psychological condition of fear is divorced from any concrete and true immediate danger. It comes in many forms: unease, worry, anxiety, nervousness, tension, dread, phobia, and so on. This kind of psychological fear is always of something that might happen, not of something that is happening now. You are in the here and now, while your mind is in the future. This creates an anxiety gap. And if you are identified with your mind and have lost touch with the power and simplicity of now, that anxiety gap will be your constant companion. You can always cope with the present moment, but you cannot cope with something that is only in the mind is only a mind projection. You cannot cope with the future, and that's so true. Whatever will they think of me? And if I say something, will it be the right thing or will it be the wrong thing? Or if I do this, what will be the outcome? And those fears are all about the future, and we can't do anything. We're powerless over those. But we're not powerless in the moment. The choice is of now. And that's really what AA does for me. It gives me the choice of now. And I've been trying to utilise my computer to its maximum capacities, and I've had to uninstall a couple of programs from Photoshop, Adobe, which are beautiful programs, but they won't run on my computer. It just doesn't have the capacity to make them go well, or everything else falls down. So they've gone, and I'm back to using what I know works for now. But back in the now. And it seems that that is how life can be lived. I went to a meeting of AA last night. We went at Flood Street, 7:30, where I'm treasurer. And somebody gave a chair. And in a general way, what they were saying was they would have wished they weren't there doing that chair, because it meant they could sit and stew in their problem. And the gift of the AA program is it invites us to use tools to get out of that problem and start looking at the solution. And when I was there listening, as I often do, I muse about what it means for me, because of course if I can get me right, then I can be helpful to other people. And what was very apparent from what was being said, we have reactions to life and responses to life. And in the STEP program of AA, there are 12 steps.
And the sixth step is all about wanting to do something about our defects of character, or those things which don't help us too much. And step 7 is about doing something about our shortcomings, not doing enough of the right thing in the moment. So it really was an eye-opener. We just get little nuggets here and there about what it is we're trying to do. And once we understand what we're trying to do, we can put it into practice. So the reaction of people often when they face a difficulty is to be angry first and react, like stepping back. And it's part of nature to we try and step away from fear, or we run for it, or we stand and fight for it. So a reaction can be bringing up all those emotions which are negative, but make us safer because we're trying to get away from something we're struggling with. And sometimes an argument can be like that, where we lash out with words which are known to be hurtful, rather than responding, which is using a bit of courage, faith and confidence to get the right of the situation for both those concerned, or as many as it happens to be. So, good learning yesterday. Anyway, daily reflections for the 21st of April, and April is step 4 month, the fearless moral inventory in this book, all about step 4. It says here, cultivating faith. I don't think we can do anything very well in this world unless we practice it, and I don't believe we do AA too well until we practice it. We should practice acquiring the spirit of service. We should attempt to acquire some faith, which isn't easily done, especially from the person who has always been very materialistic, following the standards of society today. But I think faith can be acquired. It can be acquired slowly. It has to be cultivated. That was not easy for me, and I assume that it is difficult for everyone else. Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers, page 307. Fear is often the force that prevents me from acquiring fear of acquiring and cultivating the power of faith. Fear blocks my appreciation of beauty, tolerance, forgiveness, service and serenity. All those things in step 7, which are about enlightenment and coming into the solution rather than living in the problem. And, it is often said that the program is simply there. The steps take us from living in a problem, which is a mess created by our addiction to drink and not being able to stop, through to putting down the drink and living in the solution. So, looking at the steps of is 6 is often an acknowledgement that we have defects of personality or character, as it is put in the AA jargon. But they are part of our emotional needs to actually survive. And often it's better just to wait on those reactions just a few moments so we can start to say that's a problem. But the solution is in step 7, which is courage, faith and confidence, to be on the side of everyone and not just on one side, our side and our ego. So those are good learnings for me. And as Phil sees it, basis of all humility, page 139. For just so long as we were convinced that we could live exclusively by our own individual strength and intelligence, for just that long was a working faith in a higher power impossible. This was true even when we believed that God existed. We could actually have earnest religious beliefs, which remained barren because we were still trying to play God ourselves. As long as we placed self-reliance first, a genuine reliance upon a higher power was out of the question. That basic ingredient of all humility, a desire to seek and do God's will, was missing. And really, I think what that means for me is God is truth and love. And he's not somebody sitting on a cloud with a long white beard saying, I will save you. It's actually seeing the good of the God and good conscience and how to make it work for the good of all and not just one person. And humility is being a part of life, same size, on the same path, not looking down or looking up at people, but trying to get the measure of life as it is, equally, on life's terms. So it's been an interesting 24 hours, ups and downs, and we'll see how it goes for today. More later.